and welcome back to another episode of Connect Youth. My guest this morning, Christine Savage from the Canadian Mental Health Association, James Roos from Some Other Solutions, and Jason King from Some Other Solutions. Hello there, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, great to hear you.
Thanks for coming. We've got quite a topic this morning. We're going to be talking about self-esteem. So my first question is, what is self-esteem? Who wants to tackle it?
Well, I can tackle that one, Steph. Thanks for inviting me in. It's great to be here. So self-esteem really is an attitude towards oneself, right? So it's an attitude you have about yourself is self-esteem. I think, Jason, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, definitely. Self-esteem is all about yourself, your how you view yourself. And that's pretty much how I view it.
And would you suggest, we say high self-esteem, low self-esteem? Do we want a medium self-esteem? How do we want to view ourselves?
Well, I think when children feel good about themselves and they're confident, they have high self-esteem. And when they don't feel good about themselves, they have low self-esteem. So I think that's a differentiating factor there. Yeah.
I think there's like a medium line too. Sometimes you're feeling really good, confident that day, and then sometimes you're not. But I think everyone has that line where they're at for average.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it oscillates daily, right? And it depends who you surround yourself with, what your self-talk's like. So there's a number of factors that influence that for sure.
Definitely. And so we're talking a little bit about self-esteem, and in the high area of self-esteem, I'd like you to fill in the blank. So a lot of times self-esteem is associated with confidence.
Right.
So confidence is...
a belief in oneself.
I like it.
Achievement.
Confidence is achievement.
I know for a lot of kids that we work with, if they're in school and they've taken dance lessons before and they go to a dance class, they're going to be more confident than somebody who hasn't been exposed to that activity. Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk a little bit about why you guys are qualified to talk about self-esteem, and if you're knowledgeable on the topic, you'll have confidence in it.
Yeah.
So this is Christine Savage, Executive Director of the Canadian Mental Health Association. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Right. So in terms of this topic today, we do a number of youth programs in the schools, some anti-bullying programs, mental health issues. So we do a lot of work with the youth in the schools, just talking about their self-esteem, making them aware of who they are, and allowing them to understand and educate them on mental health and confidence as well.
Awesome.
My job right now, majority of my job is one-on-one mentoring with kids in the schools. I also run leadership groups and sport groups too. So I see on average week about 22 kids that I see weekly. And self-esteem, I was just checking our referral process today, and we keep a chart of why kids are referred. And I think out of 100 kids, 40 were directly referred for self-esteem issues. So that's what's
huge.
put on the chart.
Yeah.
But I would say, most of my kids, and I think most kids in general, it's something that's childhood, you're working through that, but have self-esteem problems, and that's what we work on a lot of the time.
So in working with students who are trying to help raise their self-esteem, what are your best tactics for helping that?
Well, I think a lot of self-esteem, like I said, achievement, so to explain that a little bit more, is you have to have something to work towards, I think, something that will give you self-fulfillment. So for example, our program called Junior Mentor, that's the leadership group. I'm running one group right now with I think 14 grade 6 boys. And what you want to do is give them a goal. So our program is based on ending it with an event. So they're running an event for the school, and just give them that sense of achievement or something to work towards, helping others. Because you can boost their own esteem, through affirmation, and it only goes so far until I feel like they've actually grasped something. So they're working on, it's actually pretty cool. We're doing a fundraiser for youth hockey in honor of the Broncos. So that's what the kids are working on. Something they're really passionate about. They're all hockey boys, so it's cool to see.
That's awesome.
Those are great programs. And I think what he's talking about, too, the achievement part is really important. We run the WITS program in the school, and that's where we work with the police to really educate kids on anti-bullying and self-esteem and self-respect. And, again, it's really those achievements that those kids are obtaining that help them feel better about themselves. But I also think surrounding yourself, with people that have positive talk instead of negative talk, making sure that you're taking care of yourself completely, and things like that are really important for children as well.
Definitely. Definitely. So as far as events go and things that you guys are doing to help raise self-esteem, I would be remiss if I didn't mention what Rick would say, is that he always loves to help youth with performing arts.
Absolutely.
And he would do shows called the Gas Show, and it would be a spin-off of the Gong Show, but instead of that, it would be the Guaranteed Applause Show. So it didn't matter who performed, they always got applause instead of boos, or instead of people being like, oh, I don't know if that was good, and just trying to really help people get the confidence and the self-esteem to be able to go on stage, and whatever job they did, they were able to be encouraged and have a great time. And that's something that they're planning on instituting again with the district recording studio, which will be some nights where we have guaranteed applause, which I think is really important for students. And we're going to come back. It's actually already time to take a break. This is Connect Youth. And welcome back to Connect Youth. My guest this morning, Christine Savage, the Executive Director of the CMHA, James Rouse, the Community Outreach Worker for SOS, and Jason King, the Executive Director of SOS. Thanks, everyone, for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Steph, for having us here.
You are so welcome. We're chatting about self-esteem today, and one of the things I wanted to ask, apart from doing programs to help up self-esteem, what are your best tips for helping students who are working on it on their own?
I think surrounding yourself with positive people is one thing I would say, right? And really kind of understanding self-talk and making sure you don't have too much negative talk. It's really easy to beat yourself up and have that continual cycle running in your head. So really surrounding yourself with good people, making sure that you're cutting short the negative talk and utilizing more self-talk. What else do you think?
Yeah, so like I've talked about on here before, and like one of the big words going around like these kind of things in schools is mindfulness. So some people don't really understand that word. So really what it is just self-awareness. And like a lot of kids, you know, they're just figuring these things out, but they've never had someone like stop them and actually think about like who you are and like your positive traits. There's so many kids that have never, and who I work with, who've just never gotten a compliment before. And I'm not one of those people that are like, let's just compliment them for the sake of compliments, but like I truly believe like everyone has like a skill or something they can be complimented on. Like I know when I started this job, I think we had to write like a biography for the website, and I said I want to help kids build on skills they already have. So just they don't see it, just need some mindfulness and awareness.
Yeah, and I agree with what you both said there, and surrounding yourself with positive people, positive influences. Even in the mindfulness, controlling that internal dialogue. And then I would also encourage being involved with community, involved with extracurricular activity, where you're out with a group and you have that positive energy.
For sure.
And that exposure to different activities is really important to develop that confidence too. I think we get a lot of kids that come in that are really struggling with the bullying online. And so we really have to deal with that because they're inundated with it. They don't want to hear it or see it, and they know it's affecting them negatively, but they can't disconnect from that device where they're getting that information. When I was a kid, a long time ago,
nobody knows.
You know, we didn't have the social media buzz that they do now. So the kids really can't get away from it unless they're turning off their device. So maybe parents helping younger children monitor those devices at night and taking them away so that the children can actually do some of that self-reflective piece, which he was speaking about.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's huge in monitoring the social media and the electronics, those devices, because you know, kids go into their room at night. It's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're seeing this stuff, and they're now battling with it alone.
And they're struggling with it. It's cycling through their mind at night, right? And even not only monitoring, but putting some positive stuff on their devices too. So they're getting a message that pops up every day saying you're a good person, or, you know, really working on that strength-based approach.
I think we need to find like a middle ground, because I've seen a lot of like presentations where it's like the evils of social media, and then the kids are like, well, I really like it, so they're not seeing like, there needs to be like a middle ground. Like, so I try to teach my kids like what's healthy amount of time, or what we should be looking at, instead of being like, no, because that's unrealistic. But there is a big gap. Parents, just kids get home, they go on their iPad, and that's what they're on till night with no parental
controls.
And if that was on TV, what they were seeing, it would be a completely different story. But, they have unlimited access to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have to learn how to, I think what you raised a valid point is we can't just take it away. We have to learn how to work with it better as parents and guardians for these kids.
Yeah.
And educating more on that.
Definitely. And I think one of the crazy things about social media is there can be such highs and lows as well. You can speak poorly to yourself about the way you look compared to somebody else's look. Who knows how long it took them to get that photo perfectly, or following inspiring people, as you were saying. I started following this person called Pumpkin the raccoon. It's not a person, it's a raccoon, but but it's so cute and so inspiring. Every morning I wake up and Pumpkin's eating his cereal or he's doing something fun, and it makes me smile instead of judging myself for not having long hair anymore, or things like that are just really not important. But having a positive thing come up on my feed instead is so much more uplifting to my spirit and my smile and my day going on. Which is so important. But I also think it's a huge thing, and I say this all the time, the internet is written in pen. And I think that that's a huge thing we need to remember when we're on social media as teens and as we're bullying other people, that, it is not going to go away. In 2 years, if you're not mad at that person anymore, it's still there. It's still going to be in a Facebook message feed. It's still going to be somewhere. It still can be screenshotted for somebody to read when they're having a bad day, to go back and make their day worse. There's so many things that just really can hurt somebody's heart and have a lasting effect.
Yeah, and I don't think kids think of it in that context, right? They're not able to think of the longevity of how long that's going to be out there, right? Especially the younger kids. So when they put something out there, whether it's a post or a picture, if they're encouraged to do that, they think maybe they're sending it to one person, but all of a sudden it's gone viral and there's multiple people that have it. And it could be a very negative post.
For sure.
Some of it is, like, I've had kids show me, like, bring up their Instagram feed and show me what people are writing, and some of it is worse than you even would probably expect. I mean, like, death threats, things like that. And but the thing is that when the kids are writing it on the other end, I think they're also not realizing how extreme that is, or how bad they're really being, because it's kind of like funny, right? And even they might go back on it too, but in how it's a joke, but no, they're really feeling it. And I've known several cases just this year of kids having to in school suspension, stuff like that. But
well, it's recognizing that behind the screen, on the other side of that screen, there is somebody else there.
Right.
Just because you can't see them face to face doesn't mean it doesn't hurt as much. And then it's when you get to replay it, reread it, as you said, when you're in alone. So being cognizant that it stays there.
There's a disconnect, and like, I think that's one thing we need to help bridge the gap, is like realizing this is real. You're still saying it, because I know, like, I've seen kids write terrible things. I'm like, you would never ever say this in person. Like, this is not you. But there's a disconnect where they're not fully realizing like what they're doing.
Right. Right. I agree. Yeah.
And even I think just getting in a mindset of being somebody who is an uplifting person for our friends. So as you were saying, you were trying to compliment, but you don't want to be the guy that compliments all the time. But there is something that you can find to say nice about someone else every day. And one of the things I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend who, we just turned into the meanest people when we were together, but we were really okay when we weren't together. And I remember we ended up noticing that about each other and turning it into, once one of us said something bad about somebody, we had to come up with 3 really good things about that person we had said bad. And it totally changed our relationship as to saying, like, wow, we're really positive people now. We're really people that can say nice things. And we ended up stop being those negative people and stop coming up with bad things to say about people, and instead turned into people who were like, oh, wow, did you see her rocking out? Oh, man, I love her confidence. She's walking around with this ugly skirt on and she's rocking it. Like, it turned into something that was like, whoa, this is different. And it's such a cool thing to be able to change your mindset in a couple of steps that are mindful of what you're doing. Which I think is so important. We're actually already at another break, so we're going to come back in just a few on Connect Youth. And we're back with more of Connect Youth. I'm here with Christine Savage, James Rouse, and Jason King. Guys, thanks again for joining me. We've got one quick segment left, and I want to talk about one size fits all. So we have self-esteem, where it kind of got some options of how to raise your self-esteem, and I was looking on the internet this morning about self-esteem, and there was about, 1,500 books
Yes.
on raising your self-esteem, and some of the titles were 5 ways to boost your self-esteem and make it stick, or 4 ways to stop beating yourself up once and for all, or 10 ways to learn to like yourself better. Do you have any ways that you would say are one size fits all, or is it every case is different? What makes people tick?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I think it's very individualized to the person, right? So I think people are affected by low self-esteem in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I think you talked a bit earlier about your raccoon in the morning, right? I think setting the tone for the day and having a positive tone set for the day is really important for everybody. And I think everybody's affected by this. So I think that's one important thing. I think surrounding yourself with good friends and stopping the negative talk, because that's a big thing. And I know for myself, sometimes when I have those negative thoughts or feelings, it's just saying enough and closing that down and realizing you're in control and you have the ability to do that, right?
Yeah.
And then educating yourself on bullying again.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of self-esteem is an all-encompassing issue. It affects every part of your life. So a one solution thing is there's lots of things you can do. But if I had to say one thing, and this is for me personally, and something I always try to work on, is remembering that failure isn't just for failures. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to fail. Find something you're passionate about and do it. And and this is the thing I see with kids all the time, is that crazy fear of failure. If I do it and it's not good enough, I shouldn't do it at all. But I'm always preaching failure, losing, it's okay, because that's how you get better. And anyone who's ever achieved greatness has failed more times probably than they've succeeded. And
that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and self-esteem, it affects all, as we just said. The three of us here are saying it affects all people. One thing that helps me, and I find that when I'm overworking and when I'm always giving, it has a tendency to drain you, deplete you, and then you start having those thoughts because you're a little bit more tired. Because being positive all the time does take a lot of energy, and you need the people around you to keep those spirits up. And I remember it's a number of years ago that I read a book called Leading on Empty. And I remembered this always in the book, on how the author talked about himself and how he felt depleted in life, and he felt his self-esteem going down, and he was going into a dangerous place in his mind. But he talked about looking at himself as a tank of gas in a car. And it's about fueling that car up. You have to fuel yourself. And if you're always giving, you're depleting that fuel. So you have to you have to budget your day, balance your day, and find times to be able to give to yourself things that you enjoy, so that you can replenish yourself and you don't find yourself going down into that dark place.
Yeah, good point, Jason.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things you, as yourself, getting a little personal here, what are some things that you guys do to fill yourselves up, to refuel, to recharge, and be able to go back out and give again?
Well, I think just to add what Jason's saying, I know that we both deliver mental health services in the community, and it is quite draining. We have large staff teams. So we make a point of going for coffee at least once every 2 weeks with each other, just to talk about that and have a positive outlet. And it's not it's a way to allow ourselves to be able to talk about something we're both engaged in. I think also it's we both, work out after work and take that time to do something physical, right? To get rid of some of that energy that's there that's built up during the day.
Smart.
Yeah, and I think this has been a new skill I've learned in this job, is debriefing with your coworkers. Because sometimes, especially dealing in this field, you're out all day and you only see one side of things. So really just debriefing and thinking about that. And on a personal level, for me, a perfect way to relax is just a quiet night home, turn on a basketball game. For me, that's what I need to reset. I'm simple.
Yeah. For myself, I at the end of the day, it's I do jiu-jitsu. I like martial arts. So I enjoy at the end of the day going to the gym with a bunch of my buddies, and we spar, we learn different things, and it's great camaraderie. and that recharges my batteries.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I noticed that a lot of your things were getting out with people. It wasn't
Right.
kind of closing yourself
Right.
in, taking a bath by yourself, which is fine for self-love, but you want to kind of get out and be in the
Yeah.
community and have people around you that are going to
Yeah.
uplift you as you're...
Absolutely. There's a very close relationship between connection and self-esteem too, right? Because if you isolate yourself, you're becoming less disconnected, right?
Yeah.
And so you're becoming more disconnected and you're becoming more isolated and you don't know what your resources are. And then you just have that self-talk. And if it's negative self-talk, it can be very damaging for that individual.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I've had a great time this morning. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good?
Thanks so much for
Covered.
inviting us.
Yeah.
Thanks for
you.
coming, guys. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. This has been Connect Youth.